Hello, I'm Ignacio Grifol, and I'm here with Doug Basham. Hello, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me on in your interview session here. Appreciate it.
No, it's my honor. Well, I'm gonna start with the first question. Can you tell me your first memories about pro wrestling?
Oh man, yeah. Actually, my very first memories of professional wrestling was when I was a little kid, and I first saw it on TV. My dad was like, sit down, get out of the way, because I was in front of the TV just sitting there watching it. And I remember faintly, well, I remember him telling me the story, because I don't remember because I was like 4 or 5 or however old I was. I remember him telling me that the next day I went up to the TV and I was like trying to turn the knob because I was trying to find wrestling and it wasn't on. He's like, he said, boy, get away from here, quit messing with the TV. So those were my first memories of wrestling. I was hooked. As soon as I saw it, I was hooked.
Nice. Also, you are from a pro wrestling family, right? Because I have read that your uncle is Danny Davis.
Yes, the founder, creator, the man who created Ohio Valley Wrestling, or OVW today. He is my uncle. He trained me, and love him to death.
Can you tell me, because I have seen that you worked with him as a tag team wrestler during the 90s, during your early career?
Very early, yes. He took me under his wing, and would that's how you teach young wrestlers. You, as a younger wrestler, you work with, or you team with, or you wrestle veterans or older wrestlers, and that's how you learn. And he was very careful in training me, because I was his nephew, and I guess he wanted to make sure that I was trained right and did everything right, because I'll be carrying on his name's attached to me. And if I was not any good, I was horrible, that would reflect on him. But unfortunately, I was very athletic, and he was a very good teacher, and I was a fast learner, and my career kind of speaks for itself.
Nice. Also, you began to work at Ohio Valley Wrestling during the 90s, I mean the early days of Ohio Valley Wrestling. Can you tell me about the beginnings of the promotion?
Yeah, actually, Danny, he married my aunt, and back in 92 or 93, 94, I think 92 or 93, around there. And they started dating in, I think, in 90 or 91. And he got married and lived here in Louisville, Kentucky. He wanted to get off the road because he was still traveling and wrestling full time. That was his main source of income. So he wanted to get off the road and be a husband, to his wife. So he started a wrestling school here in Louisville, Kentucky, and it was called the Nightmare Danny Davis School of Professional Wrestling. So that was the beginning, I guess, idea of Ohio Valley Wrestling. So he had his school. I was his first student. Well, I wasn't his first person trained. When I walked into the building, there was like 4 other people there, and he'd only been open for like a week. And then he trained a whole bunch of students in time over a year or two. And then he started running shows with his students. And he called them the Stars of Tomorrow. And then he rented a small building. I mean, it was a Cracker Jack box. It was just seats only on one side. You couldn't hit the ropes too hard on one side because you'd hit the wall, and there was just enough room to walk back to the locker room on the other side. It was super small. And then so he was pretty smart on how he did it. He started small and at a turtle's pace, and slowly, got a little bigger. When the talent got more experience and more people started showing interest of wanting to come see his shows, he purchased another building, and it was a bigger building, and it had people on 2 sides this time. but yet the ring was still, you know, up against the wall. But and when he had a dream, or he had a vision of creating his own company, of creating OVW, Ohio Valley Championship Wrestling. And then once he got enough money and got enough talent, and then he started his show, creating a show, and got on a TV, a very small TV channel here in Louisville that aired it like at 2 o'clock at night or something like that. He started Ohio Valley Wrestling. And at about that time, Jim Cornette and Danny Davis were really good friends. And Jim Cornette bought into the company, and then brought with him the developmental territory from WWE's developmental, which was all the guys that WWE had went out and found, but had to have training, and they didn't have any TV experience. Some of them didn't know how to wrestle; they had to be trained. And so Jim Cornette brought that, and that kind of upped the game for OVW, because you had some talented individuals that came in. That first group that came in, you know, was John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Dave Batista, Shelton Benjamin, Charlie Haas, Randy Orton. Who else? There was a whole slew of others that were in there. Nick Dinsmore, who was already in Louisville, who was Eugene. Rob Conway, who was with La Resistance, was already there. My partner, Danny Basham, who went by the Damager, he was already there. I was already there. And all of us got put under contract, and we worked with all these guys that they brought in, and helped hone their skills. So these are and then the show, WWE wanted a better looking building. And so Danny, that's when he and Jim Cornette went out and found another building in a warehouse and they called it the Davis Arena. It's on 4400 Shepherdsville Road in Louisville, Kentucky. And it's still there today. You know, for 25 years, OVW has been in existence, and it's been in that same building for about 20, maybe 21 or 22 years of OVW's existence has been in the current building that it's in now. And it's been, it's just, I can't say enough about my career and being able to be there at the very, very beginning of OVW. Now, I was OVW's very first student, not Danny's first student he trained, because he's trained many, many people. A lot of people give me some flack on that, but when he created OVW, I was the #1 student. And now, kind of fast forwarding a little bit to now, Danny sold, he's retired now, living in Clearwater, Florida, on the beach, loving it. And he sold OVW to Al Snow. And I am currently helping Al Snow with OVW. I'm the head trainer at the OVW Academy. And I'm loving every minute of it. You know, at the age of 51, you know, I'm still able to get in the ring and wrestle and roll around and teach these young students, young kids, what not to do. And Al originally brought me in. He hooked me in. There's a long story when it comes to that, but he brought me in because of my experience. You know, I've traveled the world. I've done wrestling in the independents. I've done wrestling with the major companies. I've made a ton of mistakes, and he wants me to share all that experience and those mistakes with these new students and help train them right so they don't make the same mistakes and give them the best chance of succeeding in professional wrestling.
Oh, that's great. Also, as you said, you met the golden class of Ohio Valley Wrestling: Lesnar, Orton, Cena, Batista. Can you tell me your experience with them?
My experience with those guys at the
Yes.
beginning. Oh man, when they first got there, they were so strong and so big and so well built and so eager and so hungry. It was really easy to work with them. And at that point, I had been in professional wrestling I had about 7 years experience. So I had some experience under my belt, but just right there in Ohio Valley and on some of the independents, I haven't worked for a major company yet. But Danny and Jimmy Cornette were helping to train both me, Nick, Rob Conway, the Damager, or Danny Basham. They took their time training us and helping us with TV, hitting, there's a lot that goes into a wrestling TV show, more than anybody knows and more than I'm going to put out there. If you want to know how it really is, go ahead and watch the Netflix series, docuseries,
Yes.
and you will get a very good behind the scenes view of how wrestling actually kind of works, which we at OVW are very proud of that docuseries.
Yes.
But my experience with those guys at the beginning was great. They were all great. And even when they moved on and moved up to the active roster in WWE, when I finally moved up and got to work with them, it was fantastic. Every one of them were just great people to work with.
Great. Also, I want to talk about your time in WWE, because you were working at Ohio Valley Wrestling against Damaja, your rival, your enemy, and suddenly you are called up and he became your brother. So can you tell me, how do you handle this? I mean, it's not the current storyline why we are having at Ohio Valley Wrestling.
Yeah. There, if you go on YouTube, if you or all the fans watching goes on YouTube, and you can, Jim Cornette does. I guess Jim Cornette. Well, I think how do you find it? I think Jim Cornette calls Doug Basham a 41-year-old truck driver. That will explain how that whole situation happened. But what it was, Jim Cornette, we were in a storyline where me and my partner were at odds with one another. And he was the damager in OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling, on OVW TV. He and I were co-owners of our wrestling faction called the Revolution. But originally I was the creator of the Revolution, and there's a whole storyline that went with that. But then I coerced Danny to come to the dark side and be a part of the Revolution. And we were a dominant team, dominant faction. And then all of a sudden there was jealousy that started to happen. And then, we were butting heads. And then we had this whole storyline where we were going to be facing each other, be facing each other and wrestling each other. And Jim Cornette took all this time to build this story. And which you can go back on YouTube and you can watch all those. You can watch the story and the wrestling that happened. Beautifully done, beautifully written by Jim Cornette. And then I get called up as a singles guy to get a look at. The WWE one brought me up and wanted to take a look at me because I had an amazing match with Chris Benoit at OVW. And Jim Ross was there. He saw the match and liked what he saw and brought me up and have the WWE writers take a look. Well, Jim Cornette, during that whole time, had been pushing for me and Danny to be a tag team because we were a pretty good tag team. We worked really well together. And so finally, Danny and I both got called up to have the WWE take a look at us. We were super successful. They liked us, but I had a mullet and Danny was bald. And at this, the hair, so I had this long hair, so when I'd get punched, it would fly back, and hair would fly everywhere, and it looked good, just a good visual effect. And one day we get called into the office there at WWE, and they go, I wonder what you would look like bald, Doug. So I'm like, in my head, I'm like, they just told me to go cut my hair. Yes. Oh no. I said, I'll be right back.
You to cut the hair. They suggest.
They didn't suggested, but yet go do it. Yes. And I don't know if that was a test. Let's see if he goes and does it, or if they were just wanting to mess with Jim Cornette down in OVW. So I went and cut my hair. They looked at us and they liked what they saw. And then they, the next following week, they introduced us on TV in WWE. But that was a Tuesday. OVW TV was on a Wednesday. So the week prior, me and Danny are feuding, and I have this long black hair mullet, right? I show up the following week at TV, bald like Danny. Jim Cornette looks at me and goes, I won't say all the words that he said, but it was like, oh my God, what the heck? You look like a 40-year-old truck driver. I was like, what? I'm 28 years old, Jimmy. What do you mean? I look younger. But he was mad. I mean, he was super, super ticked off. And there's a good YouTube video of him explaining that whole situation a lot better than I did. And it's very entertaining. But that's how that happened.
Yes. Also, during your time as the Basham brothers, you had matches with very good talent, like Los Guerreros, Hace and Benjamin, the Dudleys. Can you tell me your experience with them?
Oh man, let me tell you, some of the best matches and the most fun matches I had in the WWE was with Eddie and Chavo Los Guerreros, and also with Eddie and Ray Mysterio. I cannot tell you how easy, how fun, and how much of a learning experience it was wrestling those guys. They took us under their wing, taught us the ways of WWE, because we were coming from a OVW way of doing things, and it was a little bit different in the WWE. So they helped us along to teach us how to survive all that. And the matches we had, they were the very first match we had. I'll tell you this. Here's a good story. Eddie Guerrero was teaming with Tajiri at the time when me and Danny got moved up. So, and they were having a feud. The world's greatest tag team, Charlie Hace and Shelton Benjamin, was feuding and having, a storyline with Eddie and Tajiri. I think they may have been the tag team champions at the time. So me and Danny, we debuted one week and we wrestled another team the next week. And the third week, they put us in there with Eddie and Tajiri. I guess they wanted to see what we could do. And we went out there and we tore the house down with them. It was, I think you can YouTube that too. I think every match I've ever been in is on YouTube. You can watch it all in WWE. We went out there and we just absolutely killed it. And someone told me that Shelton Benjamin, Charlie Hace was watching the monitor back there. And someone told me that Shelton turned and looked at Charlie and said, "Why do I feel like somebody just stole my girlfriend?" Because we went out there and killed it with Eddie and Tajiri. So that's an interesting story.
Right. Also, you told me that you had a great match with Chris Benoit. You have another matches on a SmackDown. Can you tell me how Chris Benoit, how was to wrestle with him?
It was, Chris Benoit was one of the guys that I kind of like looked up to and wanted to wrestle like and be like, and with his aggression and his intensity. So I kind of molded a little bit of what I did from him, molded a little bit of what I did from Mr. Perfect, molded a little bit of what I did from Bret Hart. So I kind of took those three guys and just kind of meshed them together and came up with, the machine, Doug Basham. And when I finally got to work with him at OVW for the first time, it was a dream come true. And, he was a true professional. I was a true professional. It was very physical, but, physical in a good way. We hit each other hard at times and even harder in other times, but didn't hurt each other, worked well. And I mean, the match was one of the best matches I've ever had in OVW. It's one of the most memorable in OVW. I loved it. I had a great time and it was fun. And Chris was so good to work with in OVW. And when I got moved up to WWE, when I got to work with him again, he remembered that. And he was very giving and very trustworthy of me when we worked with each other and wrestled each other in WWE.
Great. Also, there is, as you said, another name that usually don't appear in the conversation of greatest Ohio Valley Wrestling alumni, Nick Dinsmore, Eugene. He's usually very underrated. Can you tell me how is working with him?
Working with Nick, I've had some of my best matches in OVW with Nick. And me and Nick worked so well together. We could go in there and just do it and make something great. I mean, I'm in one locker room, he's in the other. We get in there and we come out and we make a masterpiece. He was one of the best guys. He's one of the best guys I've ever been in a ring with. There's Nick Dinsmore, and underrated in WWE because he played Eugene. But you know what? WWE is a different it's a different brand, you know, it's entertainment. Whereas OVW is, Ohio Valley Wrestling, World Wrestling Entertainment. And Nick created an entertainment character and made a lot of money and did very well. You know, he did the best out of the four originals of OVW. The four originals being Nick Dinsmore, Rob Conway, me, and Danny. He made the most money, let's put it that way.
Yes, of course, of course. Also, one of your last storylines was Paul Heyman personal security, but the angle was cut because, well, he left the promotion. Can you tell me, do you think that the Paul Heyman security had more potential?
No, I don't think so. I think that was our last stop. They didn't really know what to do with me and Danny, and we were about to be wrapped up, I think. And you know, in ECW, Paul Heyman needed some security guys, and what about the Bashams? And they put us under in the riot gear. And then I think first match in the riot gear, we wrestled Paul London and Spanky, I think, Brian Kendrick, and Danny clotheslined and tore his bicep and was out. And I was like, oh, we're done. We are finished. And then Derek Nightkirk took his place, and we gelled pretty well together. And then we finished up, you know, we just kind of finished up the whole Paul Heyman. When he left, we were done. They sent us home, and then shortly after that, we got a release.
Okay. Yes. Also, you had your time with JBL as part of the cabinet. Can you tell me your time working with, at the time, the longest reigning SmackDown World Champion?
It was the best time that I had in WWE. I was working with the champ. I was getting a rub from the champ. We were on all the pay-per-views. We were in the main events. We were in high-profile matches. And, you know, JBL took me and Danny aside and helped us along too, because JBL, he really liked my uncle. He really liked Danny. I met JBL first time when he came down to OVW to rehab. I think he had tore his bicep or hurt his forearm or something. So he had come down to rehab, get in ring shape, get his wind cardio up. And that's where I met JBL, and Danny introduced me as his nephew, and JBL always kind of looked out for me. He always, I mean, he'd rib me and mess with me and have fun with me and all that, but he actually, looked out for me. And JBL and The Undertaker were two of the guys that spoke up for me and Danny, that gave us the opportunity with JBL in the cabinet. We did that Tough Enough challenge where Danny and I had to guard that flag. And weeks before that, some of the top guys were kind of getting, I don't want to say getting embarrassed, but the segments that they were in didn't quite pan out the way that they wanted them to. Like the Big Show was slamming the Tough Enough kids, and they were, he didn't slam them hard enough. He should have threw them through the mat and to the floor. But Big Show's got a big heart. And then, Kurt Angle almost got tapped out by Pewter But in Kurt's defense, he had a bad neck and he had a pinched nerve in his left arm. He only had about 40% strength in that left arm, so he had no strength. And Kurt Angle is a gold medalist. He is the best wrestler on the planet, and there is nobody on the planet that could have beat him. So Pewter, if Kurt Angle would have been 100%, Pewter wouldn't have even came close to getting his arm. That is the only reason. And but since we were put out there as let me back it up a little bit.
Yeah.
earlier in the day, we were walking through the segment, and the Tough Enough kids were coming out. So because they didn't know where to walk and where to be, and you know, you stand here, then you get in the ring, and then you got to go through those, go through those guys. You're like, okay. And the competition was real. There was nothing wrestling about it. It was a straight up shoot. It was real. Danny cracked his orbital bone. I had to have a tooth replaced because it cracked and broke my tooth back from hitting heads and just being super physical. And earlier that day, when all the kids left and went back to their locker room, Vince was in the middle of the ring. And I've told this story before, but Vince was in the middle of the ring, and he pulled me and Danny over to the middle of the ring. Goes, boys. I said, hello, boss. How are you? He goes, you see that turnbuckle over there where that flag is? You go, yeah. Do you see that symbol on it? Yeah, World WWE. Yep, see it. He goes, you're representing that tonight. Don't let them get. He said, short of killing anybody, don't let them get that flag. And he slapped me on the shoulder and goes, ah, and then walked off. I turned and looked at Danny and I went, I think we've just been put on notice, man.
Yeah.
So
another suggestion then, don't do.
Yes. So we went out there and we did our job. Nobody was getting that flag. If we had to, whatever we had to do, nobody was getting that flag. When we were successful. And then later that night, I was sitting off to the side, getting ready to leave, and Undertaker came over to me and stuck his hand out and said, good job, that a way to represent. And then he tapped me on the shoulder too and walked off. So that was one of the biggest compliments I think I've ever got in the WWE, right there from the man. And then JBL and Undertaker went to Vince. I found this out way later, like years later. Went to Vince and said, you know what, we put them boys in harm's way. Let's reward them. And Vince agreed. He goes, yes, we did. So the Bashams, the secretaries of defense were born. And then they brought us out against Eddie and Booker. They were I can't remember who they were facing, but they wanted us just to do a run-in and just come in and just, beat them up. And Booker T, I thank Booker for this. Booker said, wait a second. If we're going to do it, let's do it right. So it was Booker's idea to have us set in the crowd in mass and come up and hit them without, nobody knowing who we were. And then we pulled the masks off, stuff like that. And the Secretaries of Defense was born. So thank you, Booker T.
Great. Also, talking about the Kurt Angle situation, when Daniel Pruder came backstage, nobody said, what were you thinking? I mean, do you think that this is the way to get into WWE?
What was the question again?
The backstage reaction when Daniel Pruder tried to fuck with Kurt Angle.
Yeah. Well, I think that Kurt kind of went off script and wasn't supposed to invite anybody else in the ring, and Pewter just took advantage of the situation, and he didn't know. He was a young kid. He didn't know the ways of wrestling. Yeah. So he went out there and did what he thought he was supposed to do, and I guess maybe it could have been the wrong thing to do. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
The worst case scenario for the.
Yes, because I think there was a battle royal where he got
chopped by Hardcore Holly and Benoit, the Royal Rumble, I think, the Royal Rumble.
he got welcomed to the WWE. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Well, after you left WWE, you have some matches on TNA. Can you tell me your time in TNA?
Yeah, absolutely. The story behind that was when we got our release. I'll tell you, I'll build up to it because it's an interesting story. It's kind of funny, and not funny, but it's an interesting story. Me and Danny were sitting at home, and I had been I was living in Tampa, Florida at the time, and my family is originally from the Louisville, Kentucky area in southern Indiana, and I went back home to Indiana. My grandfather had passed away, so I was going to the funeral, and I had gotten in the car and was getting ready to head down to the funeral home from staying at my dad's house. And I got a phone call. It was a 203. That's a Connecticut area code. And I'm like, oh, that's okay. Let's see who this is. The flip phone. Back in the day, we didn't have, who it was. It was just the numbers. If any of these kids today they can't relate to that, but we can, right?
Yes.
So I flipped it up and said, hello. It was Johnny Ace, Johnny Laurinaitis. And he goes, hey, Doug, how you doing? I said, well, not too good, Johnny. I said, I'm at home here in Indiana. I said, my grandfather passed away. I'm getting ready to go to the funeral. And he goes, oh God. And there was a silence there, and he goes, we're going to have to let you go.
Oh my God. No.
And then there was like a 45-second silence. I mean, he didn't talk and I didn't talk. And I just was sitting there like,
oh my God.
And I went, is this a rib? Are you ribbing me?
Oh my God.
And then he went, no, not done a ribbon. We're going to let you go. Can't find anything for you. Good luck in your future endeavors. And, it was a done deal. There's nothing I could say that was going to, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. I was just kidding. Let's bring you back. I knew it was over. And I just said, thank you for the opportunity. And, thank you,
Yeah.
And then, so that was that. So I hung the phone up and was like, because I thought I was going to be in the WWE for many, 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 many years. So I sat there and was like, oh man, now what am I going to do? Wrestling's all I know, and that's the biggest company in the world. And then I just, all kinds of thoughts were going through my head. And I said, man, I'll just not worry about it. And let me get through, my funeral, and I'll go back home in Tampa and I'll, regroup. So that was a Thursday. Friday, the very next day, Friday at like 9 o'clock in the morning, I got a call from Jim Cornette, and Jim Cornette goes, congratulations. And I went, what? Huh? He goes, congratulations, you're finally out of that hellhole of a company. When's your 90 days up? I went, well, Jimmy, yesterday, I got released yesterday, so 89 days from today. He goes, great. 89 days, but whatever, April, whatever, you're going to be in whatever. We'll see you then. Bye. And I went, okay. I got fired that day and hired the next. Great. So that's how we got into the TNA.
TNA.
And then we had, when we finally got there, they brought us in with Christy Hemme as their heaters and helping her and Lance Archer now.
Yes.
With that. And we worked with the Billy Gunn and Billy Gunn and Road Dogg.
Yeah.
And we had our 90-day trial, and we just didn't quite make the cut there. I think Danny was a little stiff with Road Dogg, and Road Dogg didn't quite like it that much. And I think that was a nail in the coffin for us. I think I'm not 100% sure. I don't know. Maybe we just Jeff Jarrett and they just didn't see enough in us to keep us. So that was that. We just didn't make the cut at TNA.
Well, what do you think that Impact has renamed back to TNA?
What do I think about that?
Yes.
No, I think it's great. I think it's great. Total nonstop action, TNA. It's a double entendre. I think I love it.
We have talked about your time in TNA, but you also between 2008 and 2009, you worked extensively on Ireland and the UK. Can you tell me why?
Yeah, I wanted to, before I actually slowed down or took a break from wrestling, or kind of, you know, just looked for something else to do, I wanted to travel the world for a few years. And, you know, I wanted to go to England, Ireland, back to Australia, Japan, you know, all over Europe. I just wanted to go and travel and wrestle and see the world. Because when I was with the WWE, you know, I didn't have a lot of time to go and see the countries that I was in. I did the best I could, but it was very, very, you know, time was so limited. So when I traveled, I was gone for like 6 weeks at a time. So I was able to go and see sightseeing. Of course, I had work and job to do, but I was able to go and see the country where I was staying or where I was, and see the culture and see all the history of that country, because I'm a huge history buff, and I just love going out and learning the ways of the world, you know. And I did that, and I had a golden opportunity to do that, and loved every minute of it. I never made it to Spain. That was on my radar, but it just didn't happen.
Well, maybe in the near future, maybe.
Yes, you never know, because
Yeah,
I'm not retired yet. I'm not finished with wrestling yet.
okay, okay. Well, what do you think about the evolution of the British theme? Because back in the day, there was like nobody or very low talent, but suddenly it became like a huge success.
You'll have to excuse me. I didn't quite understand the question.
No, the evolution of the British independent scene.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I got you. Yeah. You know, there was here's a funny story. Wrestling is universal. It's the same everywhere. It's like I say wrestling is like different places you go and wrestle is like different places you go in the world. Everybody has like a different accent. You know, you're English, you have an accent. You know, I have over here, I have I call it just a regular American accent, but even here in America, you have a Southern accent, you have a Northern accent, you have a New Yorker accent, you have a California, you know, so wrestling's kind of the same. It's wrestling, but you know, in the different countries, it's just a little different. You have a European style, and you have American style, and you have, you know, entertainment, you have BS, you know, just so and the British going overseas and working in Britain really wasn't that different than here in the States. It's just they did a few things that, you know, that I liked actually, in the way they wrestled and moved in the ring. Had a really good time, and you know, did I answer the question?
Yes.
Or did I go a whole different direction?
No, it's fine, it's fine.
Yep.
Also, where you retired some time ago, but you came back to wrestling on 2022. Can you tell me why?
Yeah, whenever I was traveling the world, the travel was getting harder. It was getting more difficult to deal with. You know, the money that I was making was going this way and not that way. And I watched the movie The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to watch it before, because I thought that Hollywood was just gonna make fun of wrestling, and I didn't think the movie was going to be that good. And because that was my life, that's what I was, that was my job. I was a professional wrestler, and you know, I didn't want to get ticked off with, you know, Hollywood making fun of what I did for a living. But I was in England, and a guy I was staying with said, "Man, let's sit down and watch this." I'm not watching it. He goes, no, it's really good. I go, all right, I'll watch it. So I sat down and watched that movie, and the character that Mickey Rourke portrayed as a grizzled veteran and still trying to hang on and still trying to do it, that's as close and true to wrestling as it could get. And I told myself, you know what? I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to let that happen to me. You know, you had these in the movie, the old veterans sitting at a table all by themselves, and nobody was around. They're just kind of sitting there slumped over, you know, and I said, that's not going to be me. I'm still young enough. I was 37, I think, 36, 37 or 38. I can't remember at the time. So I was still young enough to, well, I had to find something else to do because wrestling just wasn't it was not calling my name. So that when I went home, when I watched that movie while I was in England, when I went home that trip, I took my boots and just put them on the shelf. I didn't hang them up. I just put them on the shelf and said, you know, don't get too dusty. You never know. I'm not finished, you know, because I would do charity events or I would do a one-off or, you know, come and wrestle here and there because I still went and did little things. I did some charity events and charity shows. I went and did favor for you know, a couple of my buddies, you know. So I still wrestled, just not. I went out and found a whole nother career, not a job, a career. So that's what I did.
Yes. Why did you decide to come back?
Oh, here's a good story. So I kind of went in hiatus for about 10 years, I guess. But, you know, 10 years, I would, you know, pick and choose and go and wrestle in little places, but nobody heard about it or knew about it. But, you know, I would go and do it as favors for some friends and some buddies. So you know, that you remember that pandemic, right? Yeah, that global pandemic. Well, towards the end of it, you know, they shut the world down, right? Well, here in America too, they shut everybody down. Everybody stay in the house, and then you couldn't go anywhere. And then slowly, some states were starting to open up, you know. And I was living in Kentucky at the time, which I live in Kentucky now, Louisville, Kentucky, where OVW is. And there's another smaller arena in Indiana, southern Indiana. Well, Indiana opened up before Kentucky, and you allowed to have, you know, minimal people in the arena. And Al Snow had purchased OVW from my uncle and had OVW for, I think, a few years. I don't know how many years, 4 or 5 years, maybe 3, 4 years. And he was doing everything he could to, you know, keep it afloat. So, like with the TV, having the TV shows out there, because he couldn't film because we couldn't have anything. So he was doing packages and stuff like that, doing an amazing job. Al is an amazing individual, and he's got a great mind. And I love working with him. So, so a buddy of mine, which a long time ago in the very beginning, when the developmental territory came with Brock Lesnar, Dave Bautista, Randy, John, when they all came to Louisville, there was a photo shoot that Jim and Danny had because they needed pictures. And there was a guy there by the name of Greg Brown, who was a young, you know, guy, and he volunteered his services, and he took a lot of photos of all these stars of today, and everybody else. So, without me knowing, that this gentleman had opened a restaurant and at this time I was living in Indiana. And he had a restaurant that he had opened at horrible timing, opened a restaurant, pandemic, boom. But whenever it started to open up, I frequented his restaurant because it's a great, called Harbor and Hops in Jeffersonville, Indiana. If anybody over there listening ever comes to Indiana, go there. It's a great place. You might see me, but throw a plug in there for Harbor and Hops and my buddy Greg. I get fan mail from fans still, and they send me letters, and they send me pictures, and they send me little trading cards and ask for my autograph. So I sign them. I'll sign them, and I'll put them in. They'll send me a return envelope. If you don't, I can't send them back to you. But a return envelope, and I send them back to people. Well, this veteran had written me a letter saying that he had PTSD, and collecting wrestling autographs and pictures and stuff helps him cope with his PTSD, and wrote a really heartfelt letter saying that he was a huge fan and stuff like that. And I was touched. Of course, I signed all that stuff and I sent it back to him. And but before I did, I became friends with the bartender, because it's like a restaurant, you know, but it's got like a bar area, and it has like 100 taps on, you know, 100 taps there, and became really good friends because he was a wrestling fan. And I said, man, I got to show you something. This is awesome. And I showed him these pictures that this guy had sent me. And I didn't know, but Greg was sitting in the corner. Greg is the owner of Harbor and Hops, and he's the guy that took the pictures. He walks by me and goes, "Oh, hey, I took those pictures." And I turned and looked. I said, "Sorry?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I took those pictures." And I went, and I was confused. I was like, "What?" He goes, "Oh yeah." And then he explained the story, and I went, "Oh my goodness, I remember you now. Yes, and these are awesome." And then he and I, since that day, you know, me and Greg, we reunited. That we're like best friends now. We go golfing. I go to his restaurant all the time, and we, as a matter of fact, I was just at his house last night. He invited me over for dinner, but so he had all these pictures in boxes, and of all these guys back in the day in the early 90s or mid 90s or mid to late 90s. And he said, "Do you think Jimmy or Danny or Al or somebody would want these pictures?" I said, "I don't know. Let me check and see." So I called my Uncle Danny. He said, "No, probably wouldn't want them." I said, "You think Jimmy would want them? You can reach out to Jimmy." So I emailed Jimmy, because he'll never pick up the phone. So I emailed him. He didn't want them. And then I called Al. And Al, as soon as I called Al, he had a plan. He had an ulterior motive. He goes, I asked him, "I got these pictures, Al, I'd love to come and talk to you about it." And he goes, "Yeah, hey, we're actually filming OVW TV in Jeffersonville at this gym there, or this arena there." And he goes, "Why don't you come down, watch the show, and then I'll talk to you after the show." I said, "All right, I will do that." Well, I go there, I get there a little early. I say hi to everybody, and everybody was very nice, very, very cordial. Come up, introduce himself, shook my hand and all that. And then saw Al for a few minutes. Then the show started. And I was standing right next to a guy I hadn't seen in forever. And he stood there, was just kind of looking at me. And it was a guy by the name of Dave Hero. I was like, "Oh, Dave." It just didn't click. And he's the one who runs the WrestleMania of the Indies, Blizzard Brawl, where I wrestled last weekend, which where all this mix up of me retiring happened, but we'll get to that, I'm sure. So Al smelled blood in the water. He saw me there, and when I was watching the show, I started doing this.
Yes.
Oh, that's all it took. Al picked up on it. So we, after the show, he asked me, "What you think of the show? And what do you think of the guys?" And just small talk and all that. And then I talked to him about the pictures, and he goes, let me think about it. But while I'm thinking about it, you want to come back next week and maybe help me agent one of the tag matches? And I go, "Yeah, absolutely. Of course I will." He knew what he was doing. He took the fish hook, he put it in, and yeah, he was reeling me in. Yeah, he's reeling me in. Yes. That smart SOB, he got me. And then here I am now, 3 years later, helping him, still there, helping him, the head trainer at, he just kept adding, and just really, man, just pulled me all the way in and put me in the net and threw me in the cooler. Right. But that's how that happened. And I'm so glad that he did, because, I know nothing better on this planet than professional wrestling. I'm having so much fun helping these kids, agenting matches, critiquing matches, giving guys guidance and helping them with their matches, helping to write the TV shows. And I'm just having a great time, man. And it's awesome. And OVW is awesome, and if you haven't seen OVW, you can catch it. Actually, it's on YouTube now, so you can watch OVW live on YouTube. And this week, watch our TV show. It's going to be a really good show. And then this Saturday is our big Christmas Chaos pay-per-view, which you can buy on you can go on YouTube, see the link. It's ovwrestling.com. and then you can purchase the pay-per-view on that. It's going to be good. It's going to be real good. There's a lot. I can't give anything away. You'll have to watch Thursday. I want to. I know what's going to happen. At least I think. But, you know, cards always subject to change. But this is going to be an amazing TV this Thursday, and it's going to be a great pay-per-view on this December 16th, this Saturday.
Okay, I will try it. In fact, well, a few months ago, I interviewed Jack Baum, the veteran Jack Baum. Very nice man. I mean, it was a wonderful interview. I want to talk about your retirement because last week you have your last match. Suddenly, the wrestling media said that you are retired, and when I talked to you, you say, "No, I'm not retired." So you want to clarify this?
Yeah, I think there was just maybe some miscommunication that had happened, or somebody maybe speculated. The stipulation was at Blizzard Brawl, I wrestled Cal Hero. He is a OVW superstar. He is my best student. I love the fact that I had such a I've had such an impact on his training. I have done with him and his training that my uncle Danny did with me. I've handled, just been very careful on the way that I do things and show him and tell him. He's my best student. I've poured everything that I know, all my knowledge, I have poured it into him. And so has Al. Al is also his main trainer. Al's the knowledge and all this, and he also gets in the ring with him and actually tags with him and teaches him out on the road like my uncle Danny did with me, and that's how you learn. And then last Saturday, December 4th, Dave Hero, Cal's dad, who's a huge promoter in Wisconsin and is the owner of Great Lakes Championship Wrestling, holds a show every year in December, the first weekend in December, and he calls it Blizzard Brawl. And it's like the WrestleMania of the indies. Everybody wants to be on it, and everybody wants to be a part of that show. It gets a lot of press, obviously. And one of the stipulations to my match with Cal was if Cal beats me, because up there we did like a little program and where I kind of turned on him, and because I was jealous that he was tagging with Al, his trainer Al, instead of me. And then there was a time he called me, and supposedly I thought that, he's going to call me, finally wants me to tag with him. And he asked me to be a special referee. And, I was mad about it. So I turned on him and beat him up a little bit, and made people cried when that happened. In the audience, they cried. I was like, oh. And I cut a massive promo too. It was awesome. It was beautiful work. But so the match was, if Cal beats me, I got to retire in-ring duties. All my in-ring wrestling is done. So that was a stipulation. And then there was a 20-minute time limit on the match. I think you might be able to watch that match. It may be coming out soon, either on YouTube or streaming on Premiere or something, I believe. I'm not 100% sure. But it was a 20-minute time limit. The match was, I thought it was great because I watched the match back. It was very, it was kind of an old school. It wasn't your modern day flip and fly and hurricane ranas and dives and pile driving somebody on their head and then that person getting right up after it. There was a lot of, everything meant something, and it was a good, if you like a good technical wrestling match where everything means something, this is the one to watch. So we had our match, went all the way down to the wire. Cal come off the top rope with a crossbody. He hit me. I landed, rolled over. I had him pinned. He kicked out at 2 9/10, or I don't know what that is in a metric over there. Like this close, almost had him. And then as I got up, got up and he hit me with his finisher, his knee lift. and then dove on top of me, and there was a 1 count, and then the bell rang because the time ran out. So I was saved by the bell. So here's the weird thing. After that, Cal was like, I had him beat. But no, the referee's like, the time limit was expired. People were mad. People were mad at the timekeeper. They're like, what? They were yelling at him and giving him all kinds of grief. It's like, he goes, I just keeping the time. It was so funny. I'm in the ring going, what? But anyway, so Cal was, chanting 5 more minutes. And I'm like, no, I'm dead. I'm blown up. I can't even go 5 more seconds. I don't know how I'm going to walk out of here to the locker room. But the crowd, I was anticipating the crowd wanting to go 5 more minutes. And there was a lot of people going, no, we don't know. So I was like, either they didn't want to see us wrestle anymore, or the people didn't want to see me lose or get beat, or didn't want to see me retire. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Or they didn't want me to beat Cal, one of the 3 things. But that was very, very interesting. So the bell rings, we go 5 more minutes. We went about 5 seconds. Cal hit me with three pins, and I kicked out of him reluctantly. And then he gets up as I'm getting up slowly because I'm gassed. I can't even breathe. He hits me with my own finisher. Boom. Goes to pin me, and 2 lackeys come running in and stop the match and interrupt. And the referee throws it out. Now, some people would think it's a DQ. The referee could have DQ'd it, but even the referee was like, no, I'm not calling it a DQ, and Cal winning that way and Doug retiring without Cal pinning him or making him submit. So he threw it out. And I think that the people thought maybe the referee called a DQ and I lost by DQ, which means I had to retire, which is not the case. It was thrown out. I didn't lose. He didn't pin me. He didn't submit me. I didn't retire. I'm not retired. Not yet. I still have a little bit more gas in the tank.
Great. Well, there is the last question I had, because as you say, there is a lot of documentaries about wrestling, Dark Side of the Ring, wrestlers from Netflix, Monster Factory from Apple TV. Right now there is the Aaron Cloud film that is coming to theaters. Do you think that finally Hollywood and television is taking wrestling seriously?
That's a really good question. I think that if there's, when it comes to Hollywood, if there's a way to make money and a way to draw people to the movie theaters or draw people to stream it, I think they'll make they'll make a movie or make a series, because like the series the TV series that's on, or what's that show? I should know this. It'll come to me in a minute. Yeah, but so there are some movies being made about wrestling, the history of wrestling, and some of the wrestling people who were in wrestling in the early 30s and 40s, and bringing it and seeing how it come about. So I think maybe Hollywood is kind of taking a little bit serious, Heels, that's the name of Heels. Yeah, that series. So they're I think so. I think they are taking it a little more serious and seeing that there is some money to be made and some interest there. And I'm just keeping my fingers crossed and hoping that we get a season 2 on Netflix, but we don't know yet. So, hopefully people will watch the show from beginning to end, because I think that's how they do their stuff on Netflix.
Yes, some mysterious. With your comeback to wrestling, do you think there is any chance to see you and Damaja as a tag team wrestling again?
Well, I've always been told in wrestling, you never say never. So as far as me and Danny, I would love to have one more match with Danny, but he's retired, and he is retired and done. And I've tried to get him to come do autograph signings with me and stuff like that. And I think the only way to get him out of the house, out to sign autographs and take pictures, stuff like that, is if somebody pays us a lot of money. That's the only thing. That's the only way. But, you know, who wants to pay us a lot of money to come take pictures? And, you know, I mean, I think we're worth it, but, you know, I think that's the only way that Danny would, you know, do that. Cause I've tried to get him numerous occasions for many years to do it, but he said, I'm retired. It's like,
Okay.
fair enough.
And many 20 years ago, you sing with WWE. Do you think that it's time to bring back the mullet?
I can't grow hair. I've lost the battle to Mother Nature now. I shaved it off willingly back in my 30s. Now I shave it off because I only grow hair in certain places.
Okay. Well, pues that's everything now. So thank you so much for your time, Mr. Basham.
You are very welcome, and thank you for the interview. And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and everybody else out there.
Okay. Thank you so much. See ya.
You got it. Bye-bye.